Hey everyone, Adam here. So this will be a 4-part series that I've been trying to put together for a while now. And basically I'm going to call it GYLT, or Get Your Life Together. Now all of these videos and concepts I think are great on their own, but the real magic happens when you can combine all of these concepts successfully, and that's why I have a 4-part series on this. So what is the goal? What does this give you? Well, hopefully this will give you a blueprint to the life that you want on your own terms, or at least that's the goal. Now, because we're talking about you and your life, this will look different for everyone, and everyone will be at different stages. Now, everyone has totally different problems and demons that they're facing, and quite honestly, some people have really, really hard problems that they're trying to get through, much harder than other people. So let's get started. So this series, or this first part, is basically for getting your life together. It's all about realistic goal setting. And so the first step in getting your life together is trying to figure out what you want to accomplish and what your goal is. Now, it could be something simple like perhaps you want to lose 5 pounds in the next year, or it could be something more complex like touch typing. And if you don't know what touch typing is, it's basically having your hands on the keyboard in the correct fashion where you don't have to look at the keys when you're typing versus like the hunt and peck method that, no offense to my parents, that I see my parents doing. They've never learned how to touch type. So I will be coming back to these two things, touch typing and losing 5 pounds, as kind of a big example that we can kind of use and that I can talk about throughout this video. Now, in general, I think the goals that we want to accomplish basically fall into a spectrum. And the spectrum is like very easy all the way to very, very hard. And then the final, on the far right-hand side, it will fall into impossible, or also known as unrealistic. So let's look at a quick example, all right? Let's look at running a mile as fast as you can. At the time of this recording, I believe the fastest known mile to be ran by a human was basically done in 3 minutes and 43 seconds, all right? Super, super quick. Person was in like phenomenal shape. Now, if your goal is to run a 3-minute mile and you're currently running a 12-minute mile, I would call this 3-minute mile goal that you have unrealistic. Now, if you're running a 12-minute mile and you want to get that down to a 10-minute mile, depending on your age and your weight, this may be a relatively easy or medium type goal. Now, if you said you wanted to get your minute mile below 6 minutes, and your current pace is 12-minute miles, I would call that goal very, very hard. So you can see that this all falls into a very wide spectrum of how easy and difficult your goals are going to be. Now, oftentimes complex goals often equate to basically being a hard goal. And a tip that I have found is that if you set the goal too hard, a great tip is to scale it back. So, you know, in either case, if your goal is too hard or it's too complex, which is making it feel very hard, break it down into a much easier goal. And why do this? Because if it's too hard, it might be too discouraging. And it's great to have like an ultimate goal that you're aiming for, but breaking it up into smaller, easier goals is just going to give you a lot of momentum. It's going to feel good, and it's kind of on the path to maybe that ultimate goal. So for example, let's use that minute mile example again. Let's say you're currently running a 12-minute mile. Maybe your goal is to get down to ultimately an 8-minute mile. That may be hard depending on, again, your age, weight, and where you are in your fitness journey. So a better goal to start with is say, okay, I'm going to try to get down to 11-minute and 30-second mile. start there. Once you meet that goal and you are able to achieve that reliably, then maybe you say, okay, next goal, I'm going to move down to 11-minute mile, and then just work your way down until hopefully maybe you reach that ultimate goal of 9 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever it happens to be. So I'm going to bring up an important point with all of this, and I'm going to use that 5-pound weight loss as an example to just show this. All right. So if you're overweight, let's say by 30 pounds, and you want to lose 5 pounds in 12 months, basically if you break that down, you would have to lose roughly around 1/2 pound of weight every month. All right, completely doable, and I would say that that's a very realistic and on the easier side of the goal, hopefully, for you. All right. Now, if you are 10 pounds underweight, and you still want to lose 5 pounds, which, by the way, I'm not encouraging, and that sounds completely unhealthy. But the reason I mention that is because that's going to be a very, very hard goal. Your body's probably already in an unhealthy state if you're 10 pounds underweight already. And then to deprive that more is going to be super, super hard. So if you were to go that route, I would first question, like why would you want to do this? Again, probably not that healthy in the slightest. And also that is going to be a very, very hard goal. But the main reason I bring up these two points, right, like being overweight by 30 pounds and trying to reduce your weight by 5 pounds versus being underweight by 10 pounds and trying to reduce your weight by 5 pounds, is that these goals are going to be easy and or hard relative to your situation, right? Nobody else's. And so my point with all of this is, don't compare your goals to other people's, right? Don't say like, oh, that looks like an easy or hard goal for them, so it's going to be an easy goal for me. You have to compare these things to your situation and where you are at, and ultimately what your goals are. And finally, let's look at that touch typing example that I gave in the beginning of this video, all right? So if you've never done it, it's going to be hard, and it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of dedication in order to feel comfortable touch typing. I remember when I did it, I think I was in 11th grade, I finally took a class on it, and it was basically a class every 2 days, I think, but I would just, like, for an hour, it was like hit J, 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 now K, K, K. And it took me a good 6 months before I could type out 30 words a minute with a lot of errors in that. I mean, now I can type just fine. I'm up to like 60 or, you know, maybe 70 with pretty good accuracy, but that took a lot of work and a lot of dedication, all right? And it's a complex thing to learn. Now, good thing is, there's lots of lessons out there of how to set this up. But basically, a lot of them will go like this. You're going to break everything down into smaller, easier goals to attain that one complex, hard goal of being able to touch type. So, you know, the first week, it might be just learning how to sit properly at the keyboard and how to place your hands on the home row. And then, you know, eventually the first lesson might be just using, I guess it would be your index fingers for the J and the K keys. And you might do that for like 5 hours over the course of a week, just practicing hitting the J, K without looking. And then maybe the next lesson, you're moving on to your pinky with what is it? I have to look at my keyboard. The colon and the A key, right? And you just practice that. And then once you get good at that, you're going to combine the two, and then you're going to work from there, right? So you're basically stepping through and making this complex hard goal into much more attainable, easier goals. And finally, we should mention your goals and why you want to achieve what you want to achieve. Basically, your why. And there are I don't want to say better whys, but you can set this up in such a way that hopefully it will be more likely to stick and that you'll be able to achieve your goals. So what am I talking about? Let me give you an example. Again, we'll use the losing weight example. You're overweight. You know you're overweight and you want to lose weight. If your why is, I want to lose weight to look good, that is what I would consider possibly a superficial goal. It may not sustain you through the hard times when you have to try to achieve this goal. All right. And like, so for example, if you're already married, right, you'll be like, okay, the first week you've got lots of momentum. I'm going to lose those pounds. I'm going to lose that weight. And 3 weeks in, you're like, oh man, this is really hard. I'm not able to indulge in the food that I want. And I'm already married. Who cares if I look good, right? I've already got a mate, for example, right? And so that's going to derail you. You're not going to achieve your goal. Versus if it is, I want to lose weight because I know I'm going to be healthier for my kids. Like, let's say you have kids, that's your why. That is very compelling and very strong. So when you hit those hard times, you're going to be like, oh man, why am I doing this again? Oh yeah, it's to stay healthy. It's for my kids. I love them and I want to be able to be there for them for as long as I can. And one way to achieve that is hopefully being as healthy as I can be. And in the book, Atomic Habits, I believe the author was James Cleary, I can't remember. I'll post it up. But anyway, in the book Atomic Habits, the author in that book basically talked about tying some of your goals to your identity, or at least that's basically the gist. So let me give you an example. Again, I'll use the running example. Let's say you want to get into fitness. You would say, instead of like having a goal of I want to run a marathon, you would have a goal of I want to be a runner, right? You're tying that to an identity of I am going to be a runner. And the reason that's so powerful is because if you just have a goal of I want to run a marathon and you run your marathon, your goal is completed. What do you do after that? And then you may struggle to keep that going potentially, right? But if you tie it to an identity, I want to be a runner. What does a runner do? Well, a runner runs almost every day. That, because of that identity in your goal, it may be a trick to be easier to keep the momentum up and to continue on doing fitness. And it's interesting that I mentioned this because about 2 weeks ago I was actually watching a YouTube video about this fitness guy that actually thought he had no problems with goals. His goals were always something like, I'm going to run a marathon, I'm going to work on my time. And then the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden he didn't have any marathons to run. They all got canceled. And then he struggled because his goals were all tied to races. And so he, for like a good 2 or 3 months, it sounds like he didn't do anything because he didn't have the goal of I am a runner to just go out there and run. All of his goals were tied into racing. And once the races got canceled, that was it. Now, I will warn you, if you are going to tie your identity to something like this, that does have its own slight pitfalls. Basically, if you say, I'm going to be a runner, and if you ingrain that in and 10 years goes by and all of a sudden you injure yourself, and then all of a sudden you can't run for months, but you've tied that to your identity, like I am a runner, that is going to be potentially devastating because all of a sudden your identity is basically taken away. So it can be very powerful, but also if it's taken away, that can also be devastating. So anyway, these are all tips and tricks and basically ideas to think about whenever you're trying to set goals. All right, so that is it. This is part 1 of Get Your Life Together, setting realistic goals and some tips and tricks, hopefully, of how to make these goals stick and potentially set you up for as much success as you can. All right. And so this is pretty much how I try to set up goals and how I try to frame everything. As always, I hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.